So Jim, let's move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about was the advent of Beckett Grading Services. Can you tell us a little bit about how you sort of, it's not so much pivoting because you didn't abandon the price guide business, but you added this new division to Beckett Media, I suppose, and created Beckett Grading Services. What do you remember from back then in terms of bringing that online and launching it?
Well, another distinction, I mean, the new company that I sold to became Beckett Media. When I had it, it was Beckett Publications. Okay. And actually that says a lot because Beckett Publications doesn't sound like they would be in the grading business. It also doesn't sound like it'd be in the .com business either. It sounds 20th century. It sounds old school. But it wasn't. We had some very innovative people. And way before we started grading, there was an undercurrent in our office of people that thought, hey, that would be a really good idea. We noted with interest what PSA was doing. They were the only game in town at that point, pretty much. And they were making some noise. And, especially Mark Harwell, who was the president at the time, he said, we can do that. And I probably was the one, Jeremy, that was dragging my feet because I thought, well, we've got our hands full with doing the pricing. And there's some people who criticize that we shouldn't price, even though we're trying to, we're not setting the prices. We're trying to reflect the prices that are already there. But then we'd be pricing graded cards and things like that. But that was me needing to get over the fact that you can't please all the people all the time. And frankly, we've been grading cards. I mean, when I was doing the price guides, even without help, if you didn't grade the card, it's incomplete information to say a card sold for this price. It has to be with some specificity of condition. And so we were always doing that anyway. And when we started the grading, it was populated by all the price guide guys who were really sharp. Actually, right. Not all of them could grade. The ability to grade is not always correlated with hobby knowledge. Some people can, some people can't. It's eyesight, and it's just the ability to dispassionately look at a card and block everything out and give it an accurate assessment of grade, and then do it again 60 seconds later, and 60 seconds later, and 60 seconds later, or 2 minutes, or whatever they take.
Right. And keep focused and keep alert and all that, for sure. What was the ramp up like with the grading company? I mean, you launch, you do some marketing, you get your first few submissions. How long did it take for it to really take off and be able to fill or take up the time of the people that you had assigned to that division?
Our company was, I guess you have a corporate background. I mean, we basically did not, under my regime, I had no desire to announce future products. I just thought, let's perfect it, let's build a mousetrap, and then show people. And if it's a better mousetrap, people will come. And so we had basically a stealth grading operation for at least 6 months. Grant Sandground, who on your show was in the thick of that. So he kind of stopped he had a huge job in the pricing, but it was important for him to take about 6 months to help perfect the grading scale because we didn't want to do it exactly the way PSA did it. That's just not me. We wanted to do better. And so the report card was an important part of that. The inner sleeve, the more substantial holder, and the ability to use our standardized nomenclature. Those were all features that we thought we're not trying to be as good as PSA. We want to be better. In truth, we're different. And we have a great following, and so do they.
I wanted to ask you, kind of got ahead of me there, but I wanted to ask you, how involved were you in the design of the slab, the holder itself, and actually using the subgrades and displaying them prominently on the front of the label? Was that something that you initiated, or was that part of the team? And just how important was that to the success of Beckett Grading Services?
I think it was really important because it was important to have distinctives, that we're different and we're saying we want to be better, but you can't just be saying better, especially when you had an entrenched first mover competitor who was doing fine. But I think Mark Harwell, who was the president of our company at that time, and he came to me and he said, I've been working with some people on the side to come up with a patented slab that we can actually patent because it'll have enough features that are different. But he had a little bit of a coin background and knew that really taking good care of the card was important, and that it wouldn't slide around and all that. And I think Grant and Dan Hitt was involved, and Wayne Grove and Mark Anderson. I'm probably leaving out other people, but I know Grant was very involved in kind of putting together all the different scenarios for the subgrades.
Yeah.
And we went over that some, but he's very sharp, but he pretty much took the lead on that. We had discussions about it, but I'm like this too. We share this. I like things being complicated, but I don't like them to be too complicated. And so if it's complicated, but it kind of makes sense, which I think it does when you look at the report card, then I think it's a net positive. But if there's two 9.5s and two 9s, they're thinking, well, if it's your card, you want to say it's a 9.5. And if it's somebody else, you want to say it's a 9. Well, there's a scale for every possible configuration. and it depends on what grades get higher and what grades get lower. If it's got a bullet hole in it, it could be a 10, 10, 10, 0, or 1. And that doesn't average out to 9, a card bullet hole. So anyway, Grant went through all. It was really, really fun, really fun to go through that. And again, they just holed up and did a kind of what Tom Peters used to call skunk works, kind of an entrepreneuring, inside the company, developing a new thrust. And so it's kind of secret, I think. I don't think it was well known.
Okay. And you mentioned PSA was the first mover. When did SGC kind of get in the market, and did they come in after you, before you, at the same time? And were they sort of someone that you tried to get market share from, or did you have to share it with them?
I probably should not answer that. We had some confidential discussions with SGC at that time, and let me just leave it at that. But they do excellent work as well.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, Bruce Findlay wants to know. He says Sluggers was the original price guide, and then Beckett took over. Did you know the Sluggers guys or take any direction from them?
Wow, that is a Canadian question. I knew the Sluggers guys. It's Rick and Jack. And I'd see him, but I'm pretty sure I've been going for a long time. If he's talking about hockey, Andrew Pivovarchuk was doing hockey price guides too. So he clearly predates the Sluggers guys from Toronto. But I loved going to into their store, and they were very personable, engaging guys. They were a lot of fun. And they had a day in the sun. They had a moment.
Well, yeah, there was Tough Stuff, Legends, Sports Collectors Digest, Alan Kay's Sports Card magazine came out for a while. Were those anything you can say about sort of that competition that also produced some valuation guides back in the day?
You ever play golf?
Sometimes, a couple times.
Those who play golf have a choice to either compete against their opponent or compete against the course and par. And the best golfers are trying to beat par, and they're trying to be not necessarily perfect, but their standard is not what the other people are doing, but how if they play their game, they believe they'll win the tournament, not looking at the other guys. So we kind of did that. There were other people doing price guides, and some of them were more aggressive than others, and some were better than others. But at this point, we kept our eye on the ball. We weren't looking at them. But it's a free world. It's a free country. It's a free continent.
Yeah. I agree. That's the best approach to take. Worry about yourself.
Try harder though. Just for your perspective though, Jeremy, we had to try harder for hockey because it was substantially a Canadian sport, and we didn't want to be these guys in Dallas that were telling people in Canada what their hockey cards were worth when we had a franchise and it actually won the Stanley Cup. But so we hired Alan Muir. Our biggest price guide team in those days was hockey, because I just really wanted to make sure that we were nailing. Hockey is important. It is not the largest of the four sports, but it is arguably the most passionate.
I would agree with that completely. And, it's great to hear that that was the approach you took. I think that it would have been nice to have heard you say that way back. Not that it's anything that you thought wasn't the situation, but it's just nice. It's nice to hear, even thinking back to the old days of looking at these magazines every month and knowing that, you guys weren't just down in Texas telling us what our cards were worth. You were consulting, and you had advisors up here. Including my original LCS, which was Abdi Cards back in the early and mid 80s. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Bruce has another comment. He says, Dr. Brian Price is well loved in the hockey side of the hobby. What was your relationship like with Brian?
Would I trust Brian with my teeth? I'm not sure how much dentistry he's doing, but I think he's got an amazing eye for hockey memorabilia and the understanding of what makes a great card. And you and I have had a conversation about that, Jeremy, that I think he's deserving of recognition for his contributions to hockey cards and to this hobby.
Okay.
And he's a friend. I'd see him once a year, maybe at the National or at the Expo. Good guy.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Dave Weir wants to know, regarding the Beckett slab, was there any consulting done to ensure it was archival safe?
Yes, I believe that's something that Mark did. I don't know what level of archival safe, but he was very concerned about those kind of things. And, the inner sleeve and all that. He, at one point, had a collection of 30 different slabs from not just card companies, but coin grading. Anybody that did any slabbing, he looked at it for the pros and cons. And, again, not to copy, but to say, we don't want to do that. And how do we resolve those things that we see are problems in these others?